Okay, and we're off. So both runners now entering Series Station to begin the run. One thing that you'll notice about the any percent tournament is just like all the other no major glitches categories that are sort of, major completion categories, they always start with a file of 0, 0, 0. And you have to begin here on Series Station. There are actually some categories, especially in the extension boards, that skip this portion of the run and begin on the planet. But here you have to complete this portion, get hit by Ridley 5 times to get your health low enough for him to fly away. And then afterwards, that will start the timer sequence for the destruction of Series Station, and the players will make their way to the elevator while trying to avoid some steam. Yes, I believe both runners today will be running old route. I know for sure MassHesteria will be. So we'll cover what old route means here in just a little bit. Mass now moving through the first room with steam. Makes it up without much issue. Very nice. All right, and now we come to the final room with the elevator. Need to do a nice crisp wall jump here. And a nice backup there. Sometimes when the wall jump goes awry, you can go to the left. As you'll notice on the screen, the room actually moves to where you can't see what's on the right. And it looked like Skarsnik got out with a final timer of 41 and MassHesteria with a 38. So nice start by both players. They'll make their way to the surface of Zebus. Pick your poison. There's all kinds of ways to pronounce it. And they will get started on their run. One thing I do know for sure, I will give y'all a little tidbit of trivia here. And I'll just openly admit, MassHesteria is actually, as I've mentioned previously, he's an IRL friend of mine. Really great guy. And his timer, you can't really tell exactly what's on there, but I believe that's a hand-drawn image of Samus. And it's actually a little bit bigger if you could see the whole timer, but it's drawn by his daughter. So shout outs to her out there. She's a great artist. I actually have some of her Super Metroid artwork on my refrigerator. Okay, so now both players making their way down. This will, right now there's no enemies in this room, but here in a few minutes they'll be making their way up this room. It's called the Climb. One of the harder rooms of the run for sure. And, one of the harder ones, especially for newer players. But the beginning of an any percent run for the vast majority of players begins in exactly the same way. Make their way down to Criteria here. Or I guess this is technically Blue Brinstar, excuse me. And they will collect the Morphing Ball and then make their way over to grab the Alpha Missile Pack before returning up to the Climb to make their way to Bombs. All right, very nice. Going to collect 1 missile pack. Typically, you will see people on a first casual playthrough of this game, especially if they have played previous Metroid games. They usually understand what red doors mean. Red doors mean that you got to fire 5 regular missiles or 1 super to open them. Most people will open that red door right there on the right. But in the speed run, there's no reason in any percent to go over there. Technically, you can grab 1 extra missile pack over there, but it's, if you're interested in more missile packs, the one on the far right in that room is actually not as quick to grab as some other ones in the future. So now the players will head into the pit room here, another tricky room. And now they'll have to perform a climb. There are typically 2 types of climbs that players will run. One is the wall jump climb. That's what I expect to see from Brad. Very good. He's going to make his way up the right side, killing pirates along the way. And looks like Skarsnik is going to run a version of the Behemoth climb, which actually platforms up the middle of the room all the way to the top. So really interesting, showcase here of just how many different ways there are to run room strats in this game. It's one of the great things about running it as a speed run. So now they'll make their way up Parlor here, and pretty much for the rest of the run, there will be enemies, in all rooms. And they're going to head over to the next item, which will be bombs. A very essential item for them to make it through multiple pathways throughout the game. But this is so far a very close match. This is a really exciting start. The runners only about maybe 2 seconds apart from each other. And a nice sub 5:30 bombs time by both players. Excellent start. Okay, so here the pea shooter, as we call it, beam will do 20 damage per shot. And you can kill Bomb Chorizo with 5 regular shots and then 7 missiles. The missiles will do 100 damage. But sometimes it's kind of hard to get a good rhythm on Bomb Chorizo. The fastest way to do it would be to maintain full health and force those little eggs to drop only missiles instead of health. Looks like both players made their way without much issue here. They're hoping to both have full health and full regular missiles on the way out. And it looks like they both do. And now for one of the first kind of big tricks. It looks like Skarsnik is going to opt to not attempt it. Mass was going to go for it, but has now decided not to. We call this Alcatraz. There's a way to get out of that little nook there on the left. But that trick can be very tough when you first get used to it. So sometimes, if you think you're going to miss it more than a couple times, it can be faster. Just exit to the right. So now going through a room that we call Terminator, grabbing the first E-tank of the run. Just a little bit of knowledge for anybody who might not be aware. The minimum number for any percent run in terms of E-tanks would be 3, which I'll explain later. So that's the first of at least 3 they'll pick up, but I would assume that both players will, at the very minimum, grab 4, maybe even 5 or 6, depending. You come across multiple through a run, so depending on your level of comfort and how much experience you have, you can kind of opt to get as many as you like. But they grab their first E-tank. They're heading to Green Brinstar now. And now we're going to see one of the first, really mandatory speed tricks. The game intends for you to go kill a mini-boss called Spore Spawn to get the first set of super missiles. But here, the runners are going to utilize a trick called a mock ball to get under these gates. The game does not intend for you to be able to get to that area at this point in the game. You're supposed to have Speed Booster to get across that bridge. But they use a technique called a mock ball where they maintain their run speed in ball form by morphing at the correct time and maintaining their forward momentum. So they're able to get up there and grab that super pack, which will now allow them to open the first green door they come to without having to fight Spore Spawn. So a really big major time save. If you're going to speedrun Super Metroid and you're interested in really any category, that's the first really major trick that you need to learn. Okay, both players about 2 seconds apart now, heading into Big Pink, where they most likely will collect 2 more items in this room. 1 set of missiles, and then a charge beam. And charge beam is collected very early in a run, but for anybody out there that runs randomizers of this game, sometimes you don't realize just how powerful charge beam is. Charge beam is what allows you essentially to kill pretty much any boss for the rest of the game. In low percent categories, such as low percent ice, you can collect ice to do a little bit more damage, but you have to hit Mother Brain with hundreds of shots. And even low percent speed, which doesn't collect any other beam other than charge, will still allow you enough firepower to finish the game. So a very strong item, very important to a lot of tech in the game. And now we're in the last room here. Mass is entering the last room before they have to make a decision to run what we refer to as old route or new route. There's technically 2 boss orders in this game a player can run. But especially for newer players, it's usually a much better decision to run old route, which means that here in Red Tower, you go down instead of up to kill the bosses in the more traditional sort of intended way. So Mass will be making his way to the first boss, Kraid. where he will collect the various suit. And Skarsnik is close behind. Okay, MassHesteria heading up here in this room. So is Skarsnik. A really good choice here for new players. Grabbing the Spazer Beam, which will help out in a variety of ways. The one thing I mentioned earlier is that one of the things about Super Metroid that makes it so fascinating and fun is there are just so many different ways to go about routing. There are so many different ways to go about strats for boss fights. And some of them are sort of more friendly, maybe friendlier than others in terms of newer players. So I expect them to actually utilize that Spazer Beam throughout the rest of the run until much later, where they'll pick up a Plasma Beam, which will actually replace that one. But for now, the Spazer Beam will add in a lot of damage and actually make the hitbox bigger of the beam, allowing it to more easily hit and kill the enemies. All right, both players making it into Kraid's lair without much issue here. And they will be heading towards the first boss of the game, Kraid, which there's a special way to kill Kraid. We call it the Kraid Quick Kill. Kraid has 1,000 health, and it's possible to kill him without allowing him to stand up. And to do that 1,000 damage, you need to have at least one regular missile, which does 100 damage, and 3 super missiles, which do 300 damage each. If you can hit him with those in a certain time frame while his mouth is locked open, then you can kill him without him standing up. So let's see if Mass will be able to pull off this quick kill. Okay, he's going for a backup here. Okay, so he wasn't able to get the quick kill, but he was able to get 300 damage in. So now he'll need to do 700 more damage. Skarsnik also going for the quick kill. Had a little bit of an issue at the start. So Mass is going to be really careful about using his supers correctly, because this fight is actually quite difficult once Kraid stands up and can get out of hand very quickly. So he's being very careful. He wants to hit him with one more super. Skarsnik also setting up some shots here. Okay, Skarsnik getting really close to death here. He entered the health bomb range. Hopefully he will not have too much issue. This fight can actually be very, very difficult if you let Kraid stand up, because most players do not actually practice this portion very much, because it just doesn't happen too often. Luckily, we have MassHesteria making it through the fight. Skarsnik still in health bomb range and using some charge shots from his Spazer Beam, and does dispatch Kraid. Excellent job. The only problem with Skarsnik, you'll notice on the screen right now, it's all purple. Those are all health drops. Anytime that your health dips below 30, so from 29, to 1, if you do not make it above 50 health, then every single drop will be a health drop. It will, bosses and other creatures will no longer drop ammo. So that's a bit problematic for Skarsnik, because he would love to have some more supers and regular missiles. But the good news is he can farm these little bugs here. And Mini Kraid right here, 99% of the time drops 4 supers. So you get a nice little refill there before heading to Norfair. Carito, no, I am not a redneck, but I am from the South. I assume that's why you're asking. Okay, so what you see here is, traditionally, this would be the 4th E-Tank. Now, I realize there is the second one they're picking up, but if a player was going to run 3 tanks in this run, the fastest 3 tanks would be the one in Terminator, which they already collected. They also have the E-Tank that they're going to pick up here shortly in High Jump Boots room. There will also be an E-Tank after Botwoon later in Meridia, which is a nice spot. You don't have to go to an extra room to get it, and it refills you after a series of boss fights. But this Kraid E-Tank is a really excellent safety. It adds another 100 health, which can be utilized in the middle portions of this run as they get ready to fight both Phantoon and Dragon. So excellent decision by both runners to pick that up. All right, and now both players picking up my favorite item, high jump boots. High jump boots is an excellent item, very powerful, especially for people who do randomizers. They'll notice that it makes it much easier to move through a lot of the rooms because, you know, the rooms were really kind of designed to have high jump boots in terms of making it a lot safer and quicker. One thing some people don't realize when they first get started is that high jump boots does improve or increase your vertical jump, but it actually limits a little bit your horizontal jumps. You actually jump a little less horizontally once you get them. MassHesteria doing a very interesting decision here, and I really like it. It's one that he and I have talked about before. He's going to grab Ice Beam a little bit earlier than most any percent runs, and he has a very specific reason to do that. It's not much slower. If he wants to get Ice Beam before he goes to wreck ship anyway. Most players, if they want to grab that item before wreck ship, a lot of times they'll wait to get Speed Booster first, which is where Skarsnik is heading now. But he utilized a nice mock ball, and the reason he did that is because he's going to run a very specific strat at Bubble Mountain. So Skarsnik is entering the Bubble Mountain room now. Let's see what strat he tries to use to get up top. You have to get up on top of this mountain up here to get the Speed Booster. And Mass has a pretty simple setup. So Skarsnik is going to use the wall jumps, which can be really tough. Not only is it tough to wall jump sometimes, but as you can see, he just got hit by that waver and the cack attack. This room is one of the hardest rooms when you first start getting into the game. But now Skarsnik is up there. You'll see Mass here in a minute utilize a sort of Ice Beam staircase to freeze some of the creatures. And he's going to attempt to make it a little bit easier. Okay, so what Mass is going to do here, as Skarsnik collects Speed Booster here, Mass is actually going to enter the save room up here on the left. And the reason he's doing that is because he wants to reset the starting positions of the waivers. And what he's going to attempt to do is freeze this first one where he can jump on it, and then the next one where he can jump on it, and he's going to try to jump across to the top. Very nice, very nice. So notice he lost a few seconds grabbing ice early instead of using Speed Booster to get it. But he made up that time by not falling down Bubble Mountain at all. So the fact that he was able to get up there first try means he saved a few seconds, as opposed to, you know, what happens when you fall. So it'll be probably another few minutes before we see exactly how far ahead or behind either one of these players are. But right now it's looking very close. Mass also grabbing an extra missile pack. This is a good missile pack to grab right before Speed Booster. If you're looking to have some extra ammunition for, you know, potentially Fantoon or maybe Dragon. So there's a lot of different strats you can run for different bosses. And as you decide which one you want to run, you know, you might grab a different number of missiles or supers along the way. Okay, Skarsnik grabbing a really powerful beam here. The wave beam. Not only does the wave beam actually add damage, I think it's the second most powerful beam in terms of damage in the game, but it also allows Samus to shoot her beam through walls and such, which can help to get by certain gates. And sometimes, I don't know if either one of these players will do it, but there's a method in this, or I guess a technique in this game called a special beam attack, where if you only have one beam equipped, not counting charge beam, you need charge for this, but if you only have, like, you know, wave beam or just ice beam or just spacer, you can actually select power bombs, which is a minor item they'll pick up here shortly, and you can charge to full and do a special beam attack. And the one for wave beam is called an X Factor, and the particles from the X Factor do a ton of damage. So there are a lot of boss fight, you know, strats that exist that utilize that. We'll wait and see if either one of these players choose to use that later, but if not, they'll at least still have the extra damage. Okay, now Skarsnik is going to go grab ice as well. Most of the time, if you see a runner in any percent old route pick up spacer, then the vast majority of the time they will pick up ice beam as well. And nice spark strat from Skarsnik there. That was really cool. Okay, so here shortly, once Skarsnik makes his way out of the ice area, he'll be taking the elevator to exit Norfair. The thing about routing an old route that sticks out is you have to do a Norfair trip 2 different times. You do this first trip to collect as many powerful items as you can get, and then your second trip is later when you return to go down to Lower Norfair to defeat Ridley. So it looks like MassHesteria is probably going to beat him to the elevator just by a little bit. Yeah, so right now it looks like Mass is, I would assume, maybe 10 seconds ahead or so, just depending on how long it takes Skarsnik to leave this room. But we have a very, very nice tight race here. As players head to Wreck Ship, it's always good to take stock of how much health and ammo you have. So Mass is in really good shape right now with 349 health, while Skarsnik only has 260, and looks like both players are pretty healthy on super. So this is a good, good situation for both at the moment. Okay, so here in this room, Red Tower, you're going to see one of the primary reasons why Ice Beam is collected early. The fastest route for Old Route collects Ice Beam really late on the way back down to Lower Norfair, but a good strat for newer players is to grab Ice early so that you can do exactly what Mass is doing right now and what Skarsnik is currently doing on his screen. They're going to freeze a lot of these rippers to make it much easier to get up this room. If you don't have the Ice Beam, you can wall jump and do hero shots, but it's actually quite tricky. What is New Route? Okay, so there are 2 primary routes, so to speak, for any percent that are run. Most players, I don't know exactly what percentage, but Old Route is the one that's run the most and is sort of the most especially friendly for newer players. It goes Kraid, Phantoon, Dragon, Ridley. And the good thing about Old Route is you're able to collect a lot of items along the way that are a little bit closer to the intended order, which means that you kind of have a few more safeties in place as you continue to develop through the game. For example, when you go fight Phantoon here, you have Various Suit, which adds 50% damage reduction. You have extra missiles, you have extra E-tanks. New Route is technically a faster route, but it's much more difficult to run. It kills Phantoon first, then goes to Ridley, then Kraid, and then Dragon. And what that ends up doing is it allows you to basically beat all 4 of the bosses, but you only make 1 trip into Norfair, so you cut down significantly on the routing. But the problem is that you don't have nearly as much powerful items in a lot of the harder sections of the game, so you have to find ways to get around that and run a lot of different strats. So plus New Route has a few other things that make it more difficult, but that's the general gist. MassHesteria making a safety save before he heads to Wreck Ship, I really think that's a good call. We talk extensively during these races about how a lot of people, will make a decision to make safety saves just in case something bad happens. That way, if they accidentally die during a really difficult part, they're not completely out of the race. So I really like Mass's decision there. I thought that was a good call. You'll notice that Skarsnik, MassHesteria did the same thing earlier. Skarsnik dropped a power bomb to open that orange door. The reason he's opening that orange door now is because he will return to it later and have to go back down, and it's actually faster to open it at the top. So Mass is making his way down into Phantoon's lair in Wreck Ship, and Skarsnik is now setting up for a short charge to get this Shine Spark to get across the moat. Excellent job by Skarsnik. And he will do the exact same method in the next room to get over the ocean. Take a look at Skarsnik's health. You'll notice that when he Shine Sparks, it takes away health. Every frame that Samus is moving, I'm not even sure exactly what the rate is, but it's like pixel or something, but you lose health. So it's a great method. It's fast. It helps you get over difficult parts, but it's also, it has its drawback because you lose health. Mass is going to go with a strat here where he's going to try to hit Phantoon with two missiles, and then a charge shot. If he does this strat correctly, and he even has some leeway with his missiles, but if he does this strat correctly, it will be a very safe 4-round method. All right, so like right there, that charge shot did 300 damage, and he was able to get 4 missiles in, so that was a 700 missile round. He's going to try to do the same thing right here. Excellent. And if he pulls this next one off, he will be very safely through the fight. This is a really nice method for newer players to run, or a nice strat for them to run. It's not very heavily dependent on ammo, and typically you don't take too much damage from it. And it's pretty fast. So his last shot there was a super. That super missile traditionally does 300 damage, but against Phantoon, a super does 600. But the drawback is if you hit Phantoon before, if he has more than 600 health, he'll actually go into an enrage phase where he becomes invulnerable, and you lose like 16 seconds. So looks like Skarsnik is using a very similar strat. Very nice. And Mass had a very nice Phantoon there, and looks like Skarsnik is setting up for a really good one too here. All right, both runners having really nice Phantoons. We have a really nice tight race here. Okay. So now they're heading up the next kind of really major room of the run, and this is true both in old route and new route, although you have different items when you enter this room, so you have to run different strats. But this room right here that Mass is entering is called the attic. You have to kill every single creature in the room. He just killed all 4 of the starting creatures with that power bomb, and now he's looking like he's going to attempt to do a Shine Spark. Ooh, unfortunately he accidentally had a misclick there. What he was trying to do was jump to the top and Shine Spark across the room to kill the rest of these creatures. But he's still fine. He's just going to kill everything with his ammo and then hop out. Looks like Skarsnik making a play over to the right. That's actually most times players will collect 2 super packs, but it's always a good decision depending on future strats you want to run to grab like a 3rd or even 4th super pack. So he took a few seconds to run over to the right here and grab another super pack, which can definitely help him out on some future boss strats and whatnot. All right, Mass entering the bowling room with plenty of health. One thing that you'll see, he did a nice job there of getting over, only taking damage twice. That can actually be a little bit more difficult in old route because of what I mentioned earlier. Having high jump boots does allow you to jump higher vertically, but it limits your horizontal jumping a little bit. So to get across in 2 jumps is actually pretty solid, or I guess taking damage twice is really solid with high jump boots on. It's a little bit easier to get across in new route in terms of just how much extra horizontal movement you have. So looks like Skarsnik was also going for that attic strat. It's a really tough one when you're first starting the game. So he's also just going to go ahead and use his ammo to finish the room out and then open that door on the left. Yeah, so just in case anybody just doesn't know the counts, the boss health counts are as follows. Kraid has 1,000 health. Phantoon has 2,500 health. Dragon has 6,000 health. Ridley has 18,000 health. And Mother Brain has 18,000 health. All right. So, Mass has completed his wreck ship portion of the run. And now will make his way, that he has gravity suit, he'll be making his way down to Meridia, which is the water section of the run. Gravity allows Samus to move in water with the same physics that she had, generally speaking, in the other portions of the run. And there will be two really important items. They're not the only two items he'll collect, but there are going to be two really important items that he will be collecting in Meridia. He will be picking up Space Jump after he kills Dragon, which will allow him to jump multiple times while spinning in the air. And then afterwards, he will go and pick up Plasma Beam, which for him, with the routing that he took grabbing early ice, that will be the last beam that he collects. Plasma Beam is the beam that does the most damage in the game. And with Wave, Ice, and Plasma stacked, his charge shots will do 900 damage each, which is a ton. That means if you do the math, Ridley and Mother Brain both having 18,000 health. A charge shot doing 900 means that they will it will take 20 charge shots to kill each of those bosses. And that's another aspect about Old Route that makes it, really, in my opinion, a really good route to start with. It's a lot tougher to try to hit Mother Brain or Ridley 60 times without taking, enough damage to die. So the Plasma Beam is sort of the last major piece that new route does not get. Okay. Skarsnik collecting, or looked like he was going to collect some supers, but I guess decided to keep running there. He's going to make his way through Hellway. Mass is going to start fighting Botwoon, a snake with a terrible hitbox. He has 3,000 health, which means 10 supers or some other variation. And since Mass's current beam combinations do 300 damage, he used as many supers as he could fit in on that first round, and he's just going to use charge shots the rest of the way. A really solid opening strat for a relatively newer player, and that was a really quick Botwoon kill, especially not utilizing X Factors. The most advanced way to kill Botwoon would be to use X Factor particles. Those particles, there are 4 of them when you use a special beam attack by Wave Beam. And since they do 300 damage per particle, you can get 4 shots in on Botwoon at the beginning, and then 6 more supers kills him. So that was a really nice fight by Mass there, considering that he wasn't using the X Factor strat. Skarsnik is now entering the tube, just as Mass did earlier. One thing to keep in mind here is Skarsnik is entering this room with a really low amount of power bombs. At minimum, it's gonna be required that he has at least 1 to progress to the Botwoon room. So what I expect to see here shortly is after he makes his way up Fish Tank, I expect to see him try to farm some crabs that have a pretty high drop rate for power bomb. Excuse me. Also, if you look at Mass's screen, I suspect, based on my knowledge of how he likes to play, I think you'll see him save here. I think he's going to go across the room and save his game before fighting Dragon. Oh, maybe not. Okay, yes, he is. I like this call. Dragon is really interesting. There are certain methods of killing her using Shine Sparks, which I don't know if Mass is going to use those to kill her, but sometimes you can get what's called chain damage, where you literally don't have any real control over taking damage after Dragon dies. And we've already seen that chain damage kill some runners in this tournament. So this is a good place to save if you're going to save, just because it kind of removes some of the risk of this particular fight. Skarsnik grabbed the crab supers here, so he now has 4 missile packs, or 4 super missile packs. And he was able to get a power bomb, and now it looks like he's got at least another one, and a third here. So now he can make his way up to Botwoon. Alright, let's watch Mass's fight here. Alright, he's going to try to utilize the Shine Spark at the open. Very nice. Dragon is the only major boss in this game that actually takes damage from Shine Sparks. Unfortunately, Dragon, I think that's the 5th swoop in a row. That's a lot of swoops. 6 swoops in a row. Okay, there we go. Now we got a good phase. Okay, unfortunately, Mass was unable to use that Shine Spark there. Looks like he's going to set up another one if he can, but man, Dragon really being not very friendly at all with the number of swoops. Unfortunately, what you just saw there, Mass did not get really as much damage as he would have wanted there. And the primary reason for that is because Samus's sprite ran into a goo. And as soon as, you just saw it again, as soon as Samus runs into a goo, Dragon goes vertical and leaves the screen. So unfortunately, he wasn't able to get in quite as much damage as he was hoping for. There we go, very nice. One thing you saw there, Mass, sometimes when you kill Dragon with a Shine Spark, there's a special thing that happens called a blue suit, which allows Samus to store a short charge, basically, and you can use it to fly across the Coliseum room here at the top of the next couple rooms. But he did not get that blue suit, so he will not be able to utilize that at the moment, and he'll just use his newly acquired space jump to space jump across the room. Skarsnik taking a nice safety save here before Botwin. Certainly don't fault him for that. If you look at his health, it's pretty low. Every single Super Metroid runner out there will tell you that not only can Botwin kill a run in terms of taking up a lot of time, but he can actually literally kill you. I've been killed by Botwin several times. So probably a good call there to save. Looks like Skarsnik also grabbing a 5th super pack. This is another one of those optional supers that are not traditionally picked up, but certainly not a bad decision. Supers are always helpful. Mass is now heading over to the Plasma Beam, which will be the last thing he grabs in Meridia before he heads to Lower Norfair to fight Ridley. Yeah, Skarsnik is definitely playing Super Metroid. Very nice. Okay. So we do have some traditional names for rooms. I believe the original name for the room that Mass is now exiting is called, well, off the top of my head, I'm blanking on it at the moment. Something with a K. Somebody will correct me in the chat, but for some reason I'm forgetting the name of it off the top of my head. But the main reason I'm forgetting it is because I've never called it that. I've always called it Vertical Pancakes. Most newer players will refer to it as Pancake Tower because of those pancake creatures. Cassius, that's it, the Cassius room, which is the name of a player in the community. Botwin being dispatched by Skarsnik. Very nice job. I always had faith that he wouldn't need that safety save, so great job by him. Mass now has Plasma. And at this point, the only thing left for Mass to do is basically to head down to Lower Norfair, kill Ridley, and then make his way to Torian to finish the game. So the only other item left that I would anticipate Mass will either consider or definitely collect would be the Ridley E-Tank. But occasionally you'll see runners grab the Firefleet E-Tank too before fighting Ridley if that makes them more comfortable, if they're running low on health by the time they get there. So we really shouldn't see that many more item collection fanfares from Mass. All right, Mass now making his way back down to Norfair. And what I expect to see him do, there's actually 2 routes you can take to get to Lower Norfair. We usually refer to them as the northern route and the southern route. I expect him to take the southern route. The southern route is over here near Ice Beam. So he's going to enter this door again. He's going to drop a power bomb. Both routes are perfectly fine and can be, roughly equal in terms of how long it takes to make it through. It just kind of depends on what comfort level each runner has with the strats. So one of the cool benefits of going southern here is this room right here, where for the majority of the room you just get to hold right and speed, so that's great. And then sometimes you can try to jump and maintain a space jump in the next room to keep your momentum. But even if you don't get it, it's not a big deal. You can still move pretty quickly through these rooms. So in terms of strats, I'd say probably a little bit easier, the southern route. But also another great benefit is what you just saw. There's a refill station that only takes a few seconds to refill your entire energy, which is always a good decision before you go down to Lower Norfair and fight Ridley. The reason I think that's such a great call is because everything in Lower Norfair hits for a tremendous amount of damage. You know, many things hit for 50, such as Key Hunters and I believe Pirates maybe. The Pirates might be 30 or 40, I can't quite remember, but the Key Hunters are 50, the Diskegas are 40, so you can lose a lot of health if you make some mistakes down here. Also, there's a few rooms that have acid, and if you're just having a really bad time, sometimes you can accidentally fall in. So good call by Mass to pick up health there. Skarsnik over here on the Dragon fight using a method that I really think is a great one for starting players. He's going to powerbomb some goo out of the way and use as many supers and regular missiles as possible to hit Dragon's stomach there. And then he will also utilize those charge shots that do 300 damage each. So he's going to try to do 6,000 damage using all of his ammo. Okay, Mass is now in what we refer to as the worst room in the game. The reason this is called the worst room in the game is because of, first of all, usually the vertical rooms are a little bit more tricky in nature. And this one in particular is just completely filled with perilous situations. You have a bunch of pirates and these, I'm blanking at the moment on the name of those little heads that stick out of the wall. But anyway, long story short, it's really hard to get through that room very quickly. And that's also one of the big differences between old route and new route. When you run new route, you do not have plasma beam, and there are actually certain enemies down here that it's almost impossible to kill. With plasma beam, you can pretty much kill anything down here. Oh, Skarsnik, unfortunately taking the damage from Dragon, got hit a few too many times, and it looks like, oh no, the safety save was obviously a good call, but it's really tough to see him die in that spot and then have to go back and refarm his items and kill Batuin again. But good to see him after it here. Hopefully he won't have an issue this time. So this should be a lesson to everybody out there. Safety saves can be a very, very good thing. So as you can see, Mass taking advantage of that incredibly powerful plasma beam. He was able to double hit and kill that first Tuskegee. He froze the second one so he wouldn't take damage. And sometimes you might even see him fire it at an enemy and run through it, utilizing its piercing properties to clip through enemies. Nice, double hit there. It usually takes 2 charge shots to kill. But if you fire at the correct time on those metal pirates, you can double hit them, and nice strat there. Okay, so Mass is, in my opinion, in pretty solid shape. I think he's going to be really confident here. He has to hit Ridley 20 times, but he's entering with 442 health. I'm not saying that you can't die with that amount of health because, you know, this is a really, really tough fight. In fact, I believe this is the toughest fight to survive when you're first getting started. But once you learn a little bit about the patterns and how he pogos, like Mass is doing an excellent job of just kind of letting Ridley pogo. And he also knows that he can take hits. You'll notice that if Mass is about to get hit by Ridley because he accidentally jumped at the wrong time, he'll just let Ridley hit him, and as long as he still gets his shot in on Ridley, because he knows that he can actually trade. You know, he can trade with Ridley and come out on top because 20 shots, you know, doesn't take too long. And on top of that, he can refill his energy immediately after the fight with the Ridley tank. So I really like this aggressive play by MassHesteria here. And looks like he's done. Excellent fight. Very nice. Skarsnik, once again, dispatching a Batuin. grabbed the Botswan E-Tank and is now refilling on his ammo before he heads to try Dragon again. Good call by Mass here. I really like grabbing this E-Tank. I actually like grabbing it in multiple different runs, even multiple categories. It allows you to get back to full health and obviously add an extra 100 health. And the reason you want to do that in a lot of cases is because the lower Norfair exit is one of the most dangerous parts of a lot of runs, because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these creatures just do so much damage. So this is really nice. When you have this amount of health, you don't have to worry so much about getting hit because you just have so much. So there are some rooms that become infinitely easier in terms of your preparation to run them, because you can literally just tank hits and run through. So sometimes grabbing that E-Tank, while slightly slower, you can make up some of the damage. You can make up some of the time back by the fact that you can run way more aggressive strats and just not even have to worry about dodging things. So as you saw there, Mass just ran through all those creatures. He took one hit and he actually clipped through the second Tuskegee. So nice strat there. Here's another room where that extra health will come in handy. There are 3 key hunters in here that do 50 damage each. You can clip through them with plasma, but if one's in a bad spot or rushes at you at a bad angle, you can just tank the hit and keep going. But here they gave him a very nice pattern, and he got through without any issue whatsoever. Okay, once again, Skarsnik not using any Shine Spark strats, which is very common for newer players. Shine Spark strats start to become a lot more complicated. So he's going to go back to his method of utilizing those supers that he picked up, which I think is great. The supers do 300 damage each to Dragon. The charge shots do 300 damage as well. And the missiles will do 100 each. So you'll notice he's dropping these power bombs to clear out the goo. And while they're being cleared out, he's trying to stand as close to Dragon as possible. Unfortunately, sometimes she'll keep going after the power bomb clears, and sometimes you can be standing under her and get hit, and she'll grab you. So slows things down a bit. But it looks like he's getting really close to killing her. Notice her belly is very red, so I would expect her to be dead here. Yeah, there we go. Nice job, Skarsnik. And Mass doing a great job of getting through Lower Norfair. Not many issues there. Was able to get out with 374 health. Perfectly fine. And he's now going to make his way back all the way up to the surface and make his way to Torian to finish the game. Yeah, key hunters. The key hunters are those sort of creatures that they kind of look like, I guess maybe to me, they kind of have like a praying mantis kind of look to them. And some of them actually in the game have wings and kind of fly around and kind of go up and down, and sometimes you can roll under them or get them to lunge at you and you can jump over them. And then there are others in certain places like Wrecked Ship that don't have wings that'll just kind of jump around. But they're usually pretty dangerous. So that's actually a room. That room with the 3 key hunters, we call it 3 Musketeers. That's actually one of the most dangerous rooms in New Route and in low percent ice. There are a lot of runs that die in that room because of how much damage those creatures do when you can't kill them, when you don't have plasma. Okay, so notice that Mass is making his way back through Meridia here. He's only going to be in Meridia for, I believe, 3 rooms, if I recall correctly. So he's going up Fish Tank, and now he's back to Mount Everest, but instead of going to the right like he did earlier, he's just going to use Space Jump to Space Jump a bunch of times up to the top of this room. And now he's basically this room right here will lead back to the elevator that they originally used to get to Wrecked Ship. So they're going to head back. He's going to head back to the surface, and you'll see Samus's ship here in a minute, and he'll only be a few rooms away from Torian. Skarsnik making his way through vertical pancakes. Again, not the official name of the room, but that's what I like to call it. And he's going to be picking up his plasma beam. One kind of small detail that you'll see here, if you look at the ammo of MassHesteria, he hasn't really stopped to farm. He just had basically whatever he had on the way to Lower Norfair, and then when he got to Lower Norfair, he used a few items, to like open a few doors, like a green door and a boss door. But otherwise, he didn't have to use any supers to go quickly on Ridley because of how much damage his fully, powered beam does. So he's actually entering Torian with an incredibly high amount of ammo. The supers are really the most important ammo in Torian, in most categories, because it allows you to run the quickest strats on the Metroids. Metroids either take 5 regular missiles or 1 super to kill after they're frozen. If you're going to use projectiles. If you want to use power bombs, it takes, I want to say, 3 power bomb hits or something like that. So, long story short, when in old route, you don't really use a lot of supers late in the run, which means that you can have a lot more when you enter Torian, which means that you're not really at the mercy of the drops nearly as much. In new route, a lot of times people will enter this portion of the run with really low supers. A lot of times I get to Torian here with like 2 or 3 supers, and it can be really problematic. So he's looking really good on health and ammo. He just wants to make sure he has as many supers as possible after the 4th Metroid room, so that he can have enough ammo to finish the Mother Brain 1 section. So we'll talk about that when he gets there shortly. Skarsnik now will be making his way down to Norfair again before he heads to Lower Norfair to fight Ridley. Okay. What you might see Mass start to do is he might still use supers in this room, but if he doesn't get very many drops here, you might see him adjust. Okay, he didn't get a single super. I expect him to adjust in this room and start using regular missiles. Let's find out. I guess I'm wrong. Okay, there we go. Yeah, at this point, he really, really needs to focus on... he's getting awful, just atrocious super drops. Doesn't mean that he's in terrible shape. I mean, he's still okay. But it would be a really good decision for him to use regular missiles in this room in particular. Because he wants to... I'll kind of explain the numbers here shortly, but he needs to maintain a certain amount of supers to finish everything he wants to finish. Oh, still using a super there. Okay, and now he's doing something like what he's doing here is once you kill all the Metroids in a room, they will no longer respawn. But if you don't kill every Metroid, like that time he left one open at the bottom, that will allow you to go back in and refarm. So now he's using his regular missiles to collect as many supers as possible, and he knows he's in much better shape now. So, wow, man, I have, in my whole life, I have never seen, or maybe only a few times have I seen so few supers drop. So Mass is really not in completely terrible shape, though. I'll try to explain it here in a minute. It gets pretty complicated, but right now you'll see him. He's in the Baby Metroid room, and this is where a lot of runners will try the Baby Metroid skip, but it's a really tough trick. So if you're new to the game, it's not really something that, we recommend people even worry about at first. So he damaged himself down so that the Baby Metroid will take less time to drain his energy, and he can kind of move along more quickly. He also faced right there. One small thing is they did not code in a standing animation when Samus faces to the right, so that actually saves 40 frames. But anyway, what I would like to explain at this point is I expect him to use regular missiles to open this door. He will now go into this room, refill his health and ammo, and then head to Mother Brain 1. For you to defeat Mother Brain 1, it's actually very complicated. I won't try to explain every nuance to it, but generally speaking, Mother Brain 1 has 3,000 health, where missiles do 100 damage, supers do 300, but you also have to hit her, like grand total, both her tank and her, you have to hit her with a combined 18 projectiles. So knowing that he had to open up, that boss door with a super, and he's going to open this last red door, additionally, people will open that with a super as well. I think what Mass is doing here is He wants, yeah, okay. I actually don't disagree with his decision. He wants to make 100% sure that he doesn't get to Mother Brain 1 and accidentally have some of his missiles be shot by turrets and, like, you know, basically soft lock. Because once you get there, if you do a Zeb skip and you get to Mother Brain 1 and you don't, you know, complete the damage or projectile numbers, you can actually soft lock the game. So he's going to make really extra sure that he has some leeway with his ammo. And the main reason this is a good call right now is because he knows how far ahead he is. So at this point, the only way for him to lose this race would be to die without a save or to soft lock. Unfortunately, Skarsnik taking just a ton of damage the first few rooms of Lower Norfair, and Space Jump accidentally failing on him in the amphitheater. Let's see. I don't remember exactly where his. I think he saved before he went down the Lower Norfair elevator. Let's find out. Okay, yeah, he's in good shape. It always, you know, stinks to die, but he didn't really lose that much time because he had a really nice safety save there. So, anyway, you're noticing here MassHesteria has plenty of ammo, assuming that, in particular, his supers don't get hit by those turrets. And he was able to get the 3,000 damage and 18 total projectiles on Mother Brain. Excellent job. So at this point, the only thing that stands between Mass and a victory is, you know, pretty much 20 charge shots. So let's have a look. Now, I do want to make one point here real quick. A lot of people that, you know, begin the game, you know, this Mother Brain fight is traditionally not too bad, okay? It's not really one of the hardest things in the game because you only have to hit her 20 times, and it's not too hard to just kind of stand there and hold R and hit her. And as you can see, the fight's already over here. You have to maintain at least 301 health, or else you will die to this Rainbow Beam, which will do exactly 300 damage, assuming you have on various suit. But I would like to warn everybody that don't be mistaken. Mother Brain is actually a very difficult fight and can be very complicated, and her attacks can be really tough to dodge if you are running a different category or don't have the plasma beam and you have to hit her a bunch more times. So that's one really good thing about old route, is that, you know, that Mother Brain fight is usually not overly complex. It always stinks to have a nice run where you make it this far and then die to Mother Brain. Okay, Skarsnik now entering Amphitheater again, trying to space jump through here. This is a really tough room. Space jump is a very awkward item. Oh no, he fell again. And as I mentioned earlier, everything down here does a ton of damage. He just took 50 damage from that pirate. Okay, don't get hit. There we go. Okay, utilizing the plasma beam to get through here. Very nice. Great. Okay, Skarsnik is doing what I referred to earlier. I like this play. He's going to go over here and actually pick up the Firefleet E-Tank. And part of the reason why this is so effective is, you know, not only do you get an extra 100 health, but you get basically, you know, an instant energy refill directly before you fight Ridley. If he wanted to get more health before Ridley without grabbing that tank, he would have had to have farmed a lot of bugs. So I think this is actually a really smart play on his part. MassHesteria over here utilizing the Rainbow Beam, or I guess the Hyper Beam, and dispatching a Mother Brain 3. And the only thing between him and a victory at this point is the escape sequence, which traditionally, I hate to commentator curse, but traditionally this portion is not, you know, one of the more complex parts of the run and not overly dangerous. So I don't expect him to have too much trouble here. He'll make his way up to the ship and be done. Okay, nice shine spark there by Mass. Gonna kill a few of the pirates here to clear them out of the way. One more pirate that he's probably gonna kill down here. There we go. He's gonna do a few wall jumps and get set up for a spark here. He wants to do a shine spark up this last climb room here because you're entering the climb room from the left. I expect him to charge and then shine spark straight up the right wall. Very nice. Saves a lot of time instead of wall jumping there. And he's back in the parlor. All right, Skarsnik gonna do a little bit of farming here before Ridley, just to make sure he's got plenty of health. Shouldn't take too long, considering that he's almost full already. And Mass entering the final room here. He's gonna jump on the ship and be done. All right, and MassHesteria finishes in first place with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 1 minute, and 26 seconds. GG, and congratulations to MassHesteria. That's officially his very first ever tournament victory in Super Metroid. Very proud of you, dude. Hope you had a fun time. Great run. Okay, and now looking at Skarsnik, he is in the early stages of his Ridley fight. You will notice that if you look at Ridley's color, Ridley is still purple. In Old Route, if you only use charge, beams when you have the fully powered beam, you need 20, and at 11, Ridley will turn pink as he just did. So once you hit your 11th shot, he turns pink, and that means you need 9 more charge shots to finish the fight. So he's getting very close here to a dead Ridley. Ooh, nice jump there. All right, Skarsnik gonna wait out these pogos. He believes he has the 20 shots. Looks like he does. Oh, no, he does not yet. He needs one more. If you see a Ridley swoop like that, that usually means he has not quite taken enough damage. All right, there we go. Now that looks a lot better. Okay, so Skarsnik now, excellent job dispatching, unquestioningly, the biggest troll in this game, Ridley. Ridley is the single biggest troll in this game. So good job. And now Skarsnik doing the same thing Mass did earlier, collecting the Ridley E-Tank. Great decision. He will refill and be able to make his Lower Norfair exit. Speedy, change your mind? Okay, I'll be glad to change your mind. Go run any other category other than any percent. I guarantee you will change your mind. Okay, I will explain my position on this. So Fantoon is, it's really interesting how Fantoon and Ridley behave. Fantoon, you can predict exactly how he's going to behave to certain scenarios. Like, you can actually completely manipulate his movement. Now, one thing you can't control is whether he has a fast, slow, or mid pattern. But at the same time, that's completely random, and you don't have any control over that. Ridley, on the other hand, has a lot of things about him where you can manipulate his movement, but the problem is that he will, 90% of the time, he'll do one thing to a certain manipulation, and then 10% of the time or so, he will just randomly do something that he's not, you're not accustomed to seeing him do. And in particular, in other categories in this game, for example, RBO, if you're running with minimal items, then literally even getting hit by Ridley one time can be the death of your entire run. In low percent ice, the Ridley fight is really complex, and if he doesn't do the right things or if he kind of trolls you a little bit too much, he can ruin your run. So Ridley ruins more runs than Fantoon for a lot of players in multiple categories. Okay, looks like they need to close out this race. So my apologies for not responding to that quicker, but thank you guys so much. Looks like they're going to cut to a different race with a different commentator. So thank y'all so much. I had a blast doing commentary. Congratulations to MassHesteria, and great run by Skarsnik so far. I hope he finishes without issue. So y'all have an excellent night and enjoy more Super Metroid action.